Welcome to the CyberVault podcast, where we unlock insights from leaders shaping the future of cybersecurity. Today, I'm joined with Arie, who's the Chief Product Officer at Orca Security, a company that's redefining cloud security visibility and risk management. Arie, great to have you on the show.
Hey, happy to be here as well.
Perfect. So, myself and I think the listeners would be really interested to hear what originally drew you into cybersecurity and what keeps you passionate about it today.
Yeah, so that's a great question. A recap, I'm 20 years in the cybersecurity space, starting from my first position as an intern, as a system engineer at Intel, where I was exposed to security space, and I think it was a great school to learn how you combine security with velocity and execution. I think the defining moment for me was where we were building technologies that should have been enablers rather than gates for Intel employees, and this is something that I took forward for all my other positions throughout the security space. I was working in bigger companies and like Cisco and Symantec and Checkpoint, also smaller ones. And this is the DNA that I took. I think it really embedded also in the things that we are doing here in Orca. Um, that combination of securing, but also being an enabler for the users of that security product.
Yeah, really cool. No, it's good to hear. And I'd be interested to know, because I know you've been in a leadership role for a while. Do you think there was a defining moment or turning point that kind of shaped your journey into leadership and the product innovation side?
I think there was. So I grew up in leadership roles as a team leader in Checkpoint, but it was more of a tactical, I would say, management. And my move to be a director in a startup where uh, we moved to something that is much more innovative rather than kind of that standard network security perimeter defense. Um, it was Fireglass. It was a browser isolation company where this was kind of connecting to the previous theme. That was the combination of how you protect the end user while he's enabled to do much more than he was able to do before he was using the product. So I think that was kind of the turning point to take that and influence the product in the senior leadership roles.
Yeah, cool. No, really good to hear. And I guess building from that, what does a typical day in the life of a chief product officer at Orca Security look like?
Oh wow! Um, it's all around. Let me approach it from a different angle. I think that the strength of the Orca security platform it is a platform, right? It's a combination of different, I would say, acronyms in a holistic platform. So you have in a typical day, you're dealing with vulnerability management, but also attack surface exposure. You're dealing with secret detection, application security, SAST,
Mm,
data security, and obviously in the recent months also AI security. So there are different verticals coming together, and it's a challenge to balance between all, to build an expertise in all those different verticals. So it's really interesting, I can say, but also challenging because you're playing in a field that essentially you're competing with dozens, if not more, of
mm.
different companies of those different verticals.
Yeah, I understand. And I think it's a really exciting time for you guys. And I think for those unfamiliar, do you think you could maybe give us a bit of an introduction or an elevator pitch almost for Orca Security?
Yeah, of course. So Orca Security, essentially why Orca Security was born. Before Orca Security, essentially the cloud security was dominated by technologies that were imported from the data center to the cloud. Essentially, it was based on agents, going and installing an agent on any VM. That was problem number one. Those projects took months, if not years, to deploy in larger organizations, and usually even failed. So that's one problem that Orca came to solve. The other one is that the security space in the cloud was siloed. You had the vulnerability management part, you had the malware detection, the workload protection, data security, yet another set of products. And even companies that did acquisitions in this space, in the end, the experience was siloed. So Orca Security innovated in those two fronts. So first of all, the technology side scanning that enabled users and customers to onboard their cloud estates with literally three clicks in the UI, which was a paradigm shift in how you approach cloud security and what is your time to value. So instead of months, in a matter of hours, you had deep visibility 100% into all your assets, VM, containers, databases, buckets, etc. Together with that deep visibility came also the problem of a lot of risks that came up that weren't there before, they weren't visible. And the second thing that we did is that holistic approach of trying to put everything on the same map, on the same graph, correlating the different risks and their influence on each other. And I think the best example is vulnerabilities with remote code execution. It's most the simple one. Everyone knows that. You have a vulnerability, it's remote code execution. You need to come and patch it immediately. That's what we will, the legacy siloed product would say. What Orca Security does is analyzing the what is the impact of the risk, what is the likelihood of it being exploited. So if that certain virtual machine is not exposed to the internet, then the risk is low. And even it is exposed, if it's in a lab environment, if it doesn't have access to your crown jewels in your organization, the risk is low. So what Orca does is the platform builds detailed attack paths in the sense of how attackers think, and given that context, provides a very clear prioritization across those tens or even hundreds of thousands of different alerts and vulnerabilities and misconfigurations out there. So this provides clear visibility and also clear prioritization and focus on what are the most urgent things to handle by our customers.
Nice. Thank you for that. And I guess that touches on, the inspiration behind why Orca Security was initially founded. I think it'd be interesting to hear how the company's mission has evolved as cloud adoption and threats have accelerated across the industry.
Yeah, yeah, that was a very interesting journey, I can say. I think that the vision in the beginning was to provide that clear visibility because customers and users in the cloud didn't know what they have. They didn't know what are the risks. So the first mission was provide a clear posture of what is out there.
Mhm.
But given the massive move to the cloud and how the cloud became a central part in operation of many of our customers and the biggest organizations out there, the mission evolved into being much more an enabler. And I would say the mission currently is to empower our customers to thrive securely in the cloud, to be an enabler, an accelerator to move ahead at the speed of the cloud while staying secure.
Nice. That's really cool. And what would you say, I guess, is a core value that drives the Orcas team and culture and innovations?
I think the two main things are around innovation and velocity.
Nice.
The innovation is really, really in our DNA. Given the origins of the company and being the company that defined the CNAPP space, the modern cloud security is embedded. We're experimenting a lot and we're continuing to innovate at scale and the speed of the cloud, and that's the velocity part. Um, you need to be really, really quick in addressing emerging threats and emerging new product segments. And this is something that is embedded in the organization.
Nice. I like it. And, it's testament to how well you guys have done to get to this point. I mean, Orca Security, they've been recognized, or you've been recognized for redefining cloud security, right? What's the secret sauce behind all the innovation? There must be something that you guys are keeping there and, really championing in the background.
Well, I won't say what is the real secret sauce. I would say that our founders came with a very, very, very strong and solid cybersecurity experience, both from the relevant units in the Israeli army, but also from spending quite a lot of time in Checkpoint, seeing different security verticals. It's something about that experience and thinking outside of the box, thinking platform, like really how do you help your user with that technology rather than the other way around, how you solve their problems, how they make their life easier.
Yeah, nice, nice. I love it. And I mean, in terms of, I guess, real world examples, could you share maybe a success story where Orca Security's solutions made a real difference for a customer?
Yeah, and I think we have those on a daily basis. I'm not exaggerating.
Mhm.
Um, we we had a company that used other security products that wanted to do a POC with us, and that POC, that was really interesting story, right? They thought that they are protected, and Orca, in a matter of hours, found a few assets that were neglected, that no one in the company ever remembered that they exist. And one of
Wow.
them was actually the first website of that company, and it was neglected for 3 years. It was full of vulnerabilities and malwares that already deployed there using those vulnerabilities. And in that POC, that was amazing. The understanding of what is the gap between the previous security products and what Orca can provide was very, very apparent. And obviously, they took us immediately. So I think that's one thing. I would say we have a very, very, very large customer um, that accelerated the time to remediate vulnerability in their organization from 2 months to 5 days.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
which is
Wow.
amazing. Given
It's incredible.
given that's incredible. And one part of that is the visibility, obviously, and I mentioned that a lot, but also the ability to connect those things, the vulnerabilities in the cloud, to the originating code, to the developer, whether it's the container image that originated it. And we have inside the product that communication of correlating those risks and automating that creation of the Jira ticket or whatever to the specific developer that is now aware of that vulnerability and needs to fix it. So we're cutting down that organizational noise, those processes, automating it, and helping that customer to be much more secure and much in a higher velocity. And that's also something that we see in other customers as well.
Nice. Yeah, I think, that case study is just a real example of, customers' feedback being a big role in terms of shaping the future. What role do you think customer feedback plays in shaping that product roadmap?
Yeah. So we are very, very attentive to our customers, and obviously you have the usual things of having advisory boards where we're sitting with our most valued customers on a region basis, also in US and Europe, in APAC, to hear their specific pains. I think across different geographies and different industries, there are specific pains. And we're really listening to them and incorporating that into our roadmap, not necessarily as solutions, but what are their pain points
Hmm.
where we can solve them in innovative ways. Um, I think that the latest here, and that's also kind of interesting story, the latest here um, is around vulnerability management, is the emerging technologies of reachability analysis, where you have vulnerabilities in the code, but most of them are not being utilized because the code is not used or even the module is not loaded. And we were the first company that approached it with our side scanning technology, so providing agentless reachability uh, for those customers, and that they obviously didn't think about that innovative approach. They just approach us with the pain of there are still so many vulnerabilities they need to handle,
Yeah.
and only that solution provided them reduction of 80%
Oh, wow.
of different vulnerabilities they need to patch. That's
No,
another example of us.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's a great example. And I think, an area I was keen to touch on is how much the industry has changed since Orca was founded. So I guess a question to you would be, looking back, what do you think's been the biggest shift in the cloud security landscape since Orca actually started?
Yeah, I think there are quite a few of those where cloud security absorbed adjacent product areas like DSPM,
Mm,
like non-human identities, etc. But obviously, the most impactful shift is the AI, right?
yes.
The entrance of AI to the cloud, both as from the threats perspective, from as another attack surface, but also as a technology that can enable us to protect our customers, to make them much more effective. I would say that was the most impactful shift that we saw. I can say that we were one of the first that introduced AI-driven search, conversational interface with the UI, with the vast amount of risks and data that we have in the platform,
Mm.
and it proved itself to be there in the edge of that technology.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think with AI becoming more and more dominant, attackers' tactics and threat models have evolved as well?
Certainly, and we can see it on a daily basis. There's so much automation that now being done by the attackers, where they mimic user interaction, they mimic how attackers think. That we're doing all kinds of studies around that, and they're frightening results of when you have something that is exposed to the internet, right? Whether it's a code repository, whether it's an asset, it's a matter of minutes where this asset is being exploited, and then um, the attackers, now not human but like AI driven, trying to spread themselves across the organization.
Yeah.
So yeah, the attackers are much smarter and much more quicker in exploiting misconfiguration vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it's a very scary world we're living in right now. I think off the back of that, has there been any lessons learned from Orca, in terms of these changes and AI, like I said, becoming a lot more of a threat to the industry?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that AI as attack surface, as I mentioned,
Mm,
it's a big threat. Okay, from one side, it's moving really, really, really fast, right? It's things are changing on a weekly basis. Technologies are emerging. There's a lot of democracy there as well. There's not enough tools like the firewalls of the past that can protect uh, individual users in organization of using AI. So the attack surface is constantly evolving,
mhm.
and essentially to fight with that, you need to utilize the same technologies, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You need to move within the pace of AI, utilizing AI as something that can identify those suspicious activities, something that can identify new technologies, MCP servers that are being deployed and being hooked to sensitive data. So
Mm.
all of those things, in the end, you need to fight AI with AI in a smart way. This is what we're doing.
Nice, for sure. And this one a bit more on a personal front. If you could go back to 2019, for example, what advice would you give your past self, or maybe even the industry as a whole?
Um, Two advices, I would say.
Hmm.
One, aim much higher than you expected. That lesson number one. I think that the move to the cloud, obviously in 2018, we expected the cloud to grow. I think the 2020, 21, the COVID years accelerated it significantly.
Hmm.
Many companies moved their workloads to the cloud to support remote work. Uh, and that really the industry exploded, and we had some challenges with that, and I would say aim for like 100x rather than 10x in your
Yeah,
architecture and
yeah, of course.
technology. That advice number one. I think advice number two um, is to anticipate ahead what are the emerging threats. um, I think that we knew how to be reactive in time and to protect our customers, and uh, we could anticipate much more the different technologies that came out that we should have been protected more.
Sure. Yeah. Hindsight's a great thing, right?
Yep.
I think, flipping that on its head and, looking more towards the future of cloud security and threats, what would you say, or what do you see is probably going to be the biggest challenge in cloud security over the next 3 to 5 years?
Not surprisingly, I think that AI, I think the complexity that
Hmm.
is added to everything, to the technology, the different vulnerabilities, the security holes that are being opened because developers are vibe coding. Um, that whole thing is going to be um, is going to expose a lot of different vulnerabilities in that attack surface, and that's going to be the biggest challenge.
Sure. And I guess on that, how do you think AI, both from a defensive and offensive standpoint, is going to reshape the cloud industry?
Yeah, I think so. So from the offensive part, as we touched, I think that AI mimicking the way that attackers think are going to be a very significant threat to
Hmm.
cloud. Anyone that has anything in the cloud will need to cope with that. I think that on the defensive side, having AI specifically as agentic AI, right?
Yeah, of course.
um, a virtual SOC analyst, security architect that can review whatever is going on, suggest remediation, even execute them. So being able to keep up with the velocity of the attacks with an agentic AI, that's going to be key to cope with that emerging threat.
100%. And I mean, how do you think organizations should prepare today for the next wave of these cloud native threats?
I think complexity is the thing that kills security. So
Yeah,
I would say organization needs to simplify their architecture. They need to consolidate technologies. They need to have a clear boundaries in the sense of not the legacy network, but clear interfaces and boundaries of what AI and what technologies are being used and accessing their data, and to defend and build a strategy of defend those entry points.
nice. No, thanks so much for that insight. For those listening, Ari, who want to get into cloud security, what advice would you give them as an industry leader?
So first of all, starting with learning cloud fundamentals, right? 'Cause learning the technologies. I think the key thing is to be curious and be ready to learn all the time. The cloud is evolving. There are new technologies being introduced all the time. Is about having the right fundamentals and being curious and be and learn all the time. I think that will be the key to entering the
Sure.
cloud security.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And I think if there was going to be one thing you would want our listeners to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
Um, I would say security and velocity are not the opposite, are not contradicting. It's something that should work together. This is the right mindset to succeed in cloud.
Great stuff. So, if you had to summarize Orca's mission in one sentence, which I know is very difficult given how complex you guys are, what would the sentence be?
That's easy. We have that mission. It's empower people to thrive securely in the cloud.
Nice, nice. I love it. And just finally, then, how can people in the industry connect or learn more about Orca Security?
Yeah, so you can visit our website, orca.security. You can connect on LinkedIn. I would love to discuss any topic about cloud, AI, the security space in general. We'll be happy to
Perfect.
talk.
Good to hear. Look, Ari, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I know our listeners have too. It's been a lovely time to sit down, learn more about Orca Security, and I'm really excited to see what's next. So thanks again for your time, and I hope everyone listening at home has enjoyed the episode.
Thank you to have me here. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Right. See you all later. Bye bye.